I, myself, took over an organization which was just 50 years old at the time. And I think I was just around 40 years of age when that happened. And I think he should not be insulted if I say this young man, Joshua, I'm 67 now, took over an organization that was 100 years old and has had to lead it and take it to the new world. And he became CEO at 39 years of age. You must understand that I therefore have a fellow feeling with him, because I can imagine that when he first walked into the office, some people probably thought, oh, the special assistant to the CEO has arrived. And therefore, he had to prove himself in a society that venerates old age. Lastly, I'd like to say that I am the oldest child in my family, married to the oldest child in the Bensi-Enchil family. Like all firstborns, we believe that those who were last born in the families have had life very easy and never really get anything done. Joshua Oigara is the last born in his family. So he has proved us wrong, but nonetheless, what he has done and what he has achieved is to show that there are no limits to what is possible. Joshua Oigara, we look forward to hearing from you. We look forward to listening to you. And thank you very much for coming all the way from Kenya to be here and for sponsoring this occasion. God bless.
Thank you. I mean, many times we speak about future leaders, but Prof, you talk about leaders of today. And I think the challenge as I speak is about the opportunity that you face. And I was speaking about three main areas for me in terms of my own experience. And obviously we travel a lot. I was in London, I came back, just arrived over for this conference, going back to London and the Middle East, and then back to Nairobi. So we find ourselves speaking a lot. And Prof spoke about a few things yesterday and obviously listening to His Excellency President Mahama and the Deputy President of South Africa, a lot of things were spoken which reflects a lot of what you can do. It's a very historic moment or a generations in this decade. Because in many ways we connect, with our forefathers or our fathers who are aspiring to and they could not connect. And we have the technology and innovations to link the future for the continent. And therefore there's a missing, it's like you're midwiving a transition for the next generation coming. So it's very important today, the Generation Z that we talk about. And it's an important aspect. If we miss it, as you can see from COVID, there's no other chance. So in your hands, there's a lot of responsibilities, I would say. I've been privileged to study across the world. I started my study in Kenya. I did my master's in Australia. I was in the Fuqua Business School at Duke University doing my early management training. I spent time in INSEAD, the business school in France, for my senior management training. Then I was in London Business School just a couple of years ago. So I can speak from a transcontinental point of view, what you see. And also I can speak about the Chinese experience because, you spoke about the challenge that America doesn't always like China. But I think Africa needs a different, the Chinese talk about the yin and the yang. There is always two lenses today for every single challenge and possibilities today. And especially to speak about a bigger continent like ours, where when you look at it from Cape Town to Lagos to Casablanca, today even to Mauritius, it's very different. I've been privileged to sit in the Afri Champions, top 50 leaders during the Bahamas administration. There are countries today where access to power is a challenge. In this generation, access to power is a challenge. Renewable energy is a challenge today. And therefore, for me, what I will challenge as I open my remarks, and I will speak a little bit more about KCB as a group, and in fact, I will speak a little bit more about what I listened to yesterday is about a learning conference as well for myself, because President Mahama talks about, I have known him a little bit personally, and I have engaged probably 10 African presidents for the last few years. And he talks about servant leadership, a lot of humility at the head of state level, a lot of humility, listening to him, positioning the challenges, articulating the opportunities that you see. So you have two ways you can decide for yourself. You can see problems, which is always what we see. And I always don't like people bring me problems. Yeah. I think with the level of knowledge that you face, we talk about critical thinking to find solutions to the problems. And Africa's greatest entrepreneurs are those who will find solutions to our problems. Yep. And I like the conversation I had yesterday. I joined the team in the evening, and I like the chats. You know, when you are in African markets or Africa, can speak to the young people, all they ask me many times is, how do I become rich? That's always the question they ask me. You know, 21, 22, 23. It's a question that I get asked all the time. Very universal across. I don't know why being rich is a big issue today. Nobody asked me that question. I'm actually very proud. Because I don't know, as a CEO for 10 years, I'm not sure I can define rich. And I'm a well-paid CEO in the continent. I don't know how I can define rich. It was never my aspirations, never when I started. And I don't think anyone can start a career today with an ambition to become rich. I think this is how you fail as a young startup. Absolutely. I mean, and I speak because I've spoken to leaders on the continent, CEOs in the continent, at the UN level. I've seen this. So, and I think it's a bubble. And number two, when I speak in China, that conversation does not arise. When I speak in South Korea, that conversation does not arise. Same age. When I speak in London, it does not arise. Because there's a generation of people that has got aspirations of what we want to do. Let me speak briefly about KCB. You know, at the continent level, and we appreciate a lot of these things. Our size today is large, but still not large. You know, the big banks are in Nigeria, in the continent. And the huge banks are in South Africa. Because that's how we are top 20 bank in the continent. But if you look at the largest bank, Standard Bank, it's 20 times our size. And when I speak to Shim Sibalala, who is the CEO of Standard Bank, you can see what they're doing. And we work with them very closely. When we speak to the bigger banks in Nigeria, so we kind of, out of those two big financial institutions, then a few banks that are in Morocco today, and Egypt, and Mauritius, than ourselves. So we say that within the Eastern Africa, you know, assets of in excess of $10 billion today, networks of 7 countries, and we've been there for history. And there are things I like to challenge because, you know, Prof. HBO said many things which are important for you. If you want to plug in, it's important that you become an architect of your destiny as a young leader. You start now. It's a journey, it's a continuum. And you're going to run for time. I heard Priyanka say, the sleepless nights. You know, leadership is always about this. One thing I challenge you as you start is that leaders today are always on the front lines of creating change, driving impact, lifting people from poverty, and creating wealth. It's something you will never stop. Prof is 67. It's never stopped. And because you're never pushed to leadership. It's a choice you make. So even as you get your graduate, your MBA, and you progress, just remember, Priyanka, that this kind of skill is what will drive you whether you want to become president. Never leave it back. When you leave it back, you get passed. I can assure you, that's how our continent has been passed, because you're waiting to rest. There's never rest for leaders. I can guarantee you, leaders can never speak about rest, because I once spoke to an African multi-billionaire many years ago. He said, less than 0.1% of Africans today drive to move their economies forward. I'm sure it's the same thing in the United States. Now, you are in that group. Is it? So your challenge is to lift. Because leadership is about you. Sometimes they say you decide what kind of destiny you want to create. And for us now, I joined the bank when we were, I think, 110 years, 115 years old. And I like to demystify this concept about old and new. And you learn this in business school as well. That new startups are the ones that are taking away the old organizations. And for me, I must believe from my experience that you need both. The best microcosm, ecosystems you need is an Amazon on one side and small SMEs supplying. That's really how it will work. Or a large mine today in Zambia that is bringing in small farmers and small suppliers and transporters in an ecosystem. That's how you create those businesses. That's what will grow you from where we are today. So I cherish both. And experience is very important for us. I learned a lot listening to Fumzila yesterday. A lot of experience is the only thing you can build. Sharpening your craft and having great ambitions that even scare you. In fact, I dare say most of the leaders I've met in my career have had ambitions that scare them. Those ambitions that always you wonder whether will you achieve them. But you're rather having those ambitions, not achieving them, but being away from the average. One of the things that I challenge a lot in Africa when I travel is I've gone to someone who gets it, and it's a challenge how you see it. Mahama spoke about it yesterday as well, but I give you an example that always irritates me. I go into a small place, into a corner of a continent, and there's a big party celebrating someone who is graduating with a diploma. It's like the whole village has stopped. This may be the first diploma today in this village, correct? But somewhere here in Boston is getting his major from MBA from Harvard. And maybe there was just a small party in the evening. The world we live in today is so interconnected that if you lose one moment, a supplier from Singapore today would deliver products to Nairobi, deliver products to Lagos, and before you knew it, the toothpicks in African markets are not manufactured in the continent. I mean, if you can't manufacture toothpicks, it tells you a lot. It's not lack of knowledge, lack of skill, and we give a lot of reasons around policy, which you spoke about yesterday. And I give you a little bit of my personal story, because my ambition has always been our business is driven on creating change, enabling others to progress, and sustaining a continuous change in progress for our young people. So we are a purpose-driven organization. Profit is just one part of our business. We are very successful in terms of profit, but we also look very strongly about the people that work for us. And I was privileged. Priyanka, someone asked me, how did you get time to come? How did you get time from your schedule? I have very strong women leaders in my organization, and there are two of them here. Rosalind on one side, who is over here, and also Angela, who runs the digital financial services in our organization, So Rosalind had to say, I needed to be in Boston today, and here we are. And I've come to see one issue that we speak about, and Muzila is not with us today, but the more you get women leaders to sit on the boardroom where decisions are being made, you start creating sustainable, long, successful organizations for the continent. There is no doubt about it. Women have a unique ability to have a long-term vision. This is proven. So we argue 50-50. We say at senior level, we need to be half on the table. Obama said it. You can't progress when half of your population is being left behind. And when I came into the organization, we didn't have women sitting at the executive committee level, correct? Today, we are coming closer to 40%, correct? We want to be at 50%. Our organization is at 50-50 today. And that's a journey we've been traveling for the last 10 years in the organizations. And I want to look at two challenges for you in terms of what do you see as success? This is a question that African young leaders ask me many times, success. And there are many reasons. We want to find the model that makes us successful. They want to find which way, which is the direction. And I always say, every single person must be an architect of their destiny in what they want to do. There are many ways. You can try. I always tell we have close to 10,000 employees. I always say, there is no chance they will become Joshua like me. They can become another Joshua. They can become another Patrick, another Angela. But replacing myself, it's almost impossible to know whether you're Christian or Hindu or Muslim. The God-given gift, you just don't know. So we spend our time becoming another person we will never become. What we should be doing, become the best version of ourselves. That's what we should do. And work yourself around it. So, if I look at the schools I went to, and I mentioned an example, I went to my story is similar to a lot of you in the room today. Went to a normal school, a very basic school, right in the highlands in Kenya. And to be honest, I had no idea what the life in the future was going to hold. And I wanted to speak. I think my teacher also was very, very tough. He said, I would not grow to become anything else. You see how my teacher was wrong. I would not grow to become anything important or significant. Unfortunately, my teacher passed away. If I was living today, they would see that I made a difference. So we have the same story. Nobody can speak about the destiny that you choose. Nobody. I can guarantee you. Don't listen to them. Ignore the naysayers. Follow your path. That's what I can encourage you to, especially from our continent. But I had one thing which was very clear for me. I always believed that I wanted to become a CEO of a blue chip by the time I was 40. I always believed. And the time I was growing up, when I was finishing my university, my undergraduate, we couldn't afford mobile phones. Today they look very basic. 25 years ago, we couldn't afford mobile phones. So I had to work for the last 20 years, working very closely. I started working as a teacher, speaking, teaching mathematics, earning $50 a month. A lot of you have done this. If you're here, you may be in a restaurant, just waiting, the tables. There are many things. These are basic. Yeah. This is the story when you read even Obama's story. That's what really happens. So over time, determination, hard work, investments, things that I want to be able to do come on. And one of the guys I wanted to meet before, is the one who's on your screen, was Jack Welch. And it's strange how academia has changed. Jack Welch was one of the most celebrated CEOs when I was graduating. Today, I don't think many people here remember. In any case, you are too young to remember him, correct? And this company was the most valued company at NYC in the late 90s, if I'm not wrong, Prof. It was very much on top. It was this company, there was other companies I cannot remember today, but this one I remember very much. And my ambition was to work with Jack Welch. I'm trained in finance. I come from Africa, and this is really, I thought I'd come and work here, I work with this guy and their team. They're one of the largest companies. We did not have Google at that time. There was no Apple. There was no Facebook. And so I said, look, I do not know whether I'll be able to. But that's what I was carrying myself as I thought about being a CEO. But 2013, we had a chance to have an engagement with Jack Welch. He had left. He was leaving General Electric. One of the greatest challenges Mahama talked about our continent is access to healthcare. Mothers who are expecting babies, or they lose their lives because there's no diagnosis. They are unwell, they go to a village, they say it's malaria. Nobody knows. You have no scan, you have no equipment. So GE has got, as you know, most of you, they have got the medical arm through GE Capital to say, can we reach, and this is very successful in India, can we provide handheld devices for diagnosis of problems for mothers and young people in the small dispensaries? It was almost a $50 million program, the first in the world. Of course, now GE has rolled it out in many countries in the continent and Asia. So my dream was to work for him, but we sat with Jack Welch on the same table as a CEO of a bank and himself with GE Capital, signing a deal that has transformed healthcare. Today, many countries have taken GE equipment to deliver healthcare. And for me, that is the transformation that we speak about across the markets where we are. But three things I want to remind you today, which I think are critical for me standing here for you, is the youth revolution in the continent. Now, you are there as leaders, and you start early. I don't think you're going to wait. Leadership is not for those who wait. There are those who take up the opportunities today. Whether you're an entrepreneur, Prof talked about it, this generation is much more biased to become entrepreneurs. Because sometimes we see venture capitalists investing in new startups. You see them building businesses in technology, in healthcare, many things you see. And whether, I've seen entrepreneurs, young ones, from Cape Town to Cairo today, to Mozambique, to Mauritius, to Zambia, to Ghana. I've seen a lot of this. Most of them today, Mahama talked about potential. And I don't have to say much and repeat what he said yesterday. But I can speak about what I see about the continent, the opportunities that you face, and I'm very passionate. Because problems we face require new thinking. You guys are very good in critical thinking. It is very hard to resolve today's problems with last year's or last decade's knowledge. Very difficult. Today we have problems about water treatment. A lot of people on the continent today have no access to clean water. This is not an issue in mature markets. We may have challenges of climate change, which I'll speak about later on, but in terms of this issue, this is how things like mobile money have been very disruptive. Yeah? But also we cannot become Me Too's. Every single young entrepreneur will run a fund that looks at entrepreneurs with new ideas, and Rosalind and I invest through our foundation. And one of the things that shocked me when I was looking at it is every time we screen the ideas, I think we screened close to 30,000, 40,000 ideas, 99% are fintechs on mobile money. You see, we are trying to do the same thing again and again. Most likely we won't go far. Maybe when you think about healthcare, education. Yeah, Fumzila talked about make education universal through e-education. Let's talk about agriculture. What do you use? What do we do for that? So sometimes we get so much sidetracked. And if all investment is going to lending, mobile payments, and everything else, we are missing a whole ecosystem. So maybe your opportunity is not going to be on financial services. Maybe it's going to be something different. And those startups, in renewable energy, very good conversation. Agriculture, very good conversation for us to have. And that's where I think a lot of value will come from for those investors. And many of you will go back to work, building enterprises, joining large enterprises. Because larger businesses in the continent, if you look at it the last 20 years, the largest 100 entities in the continent have remained largely the same, but we lost a number. We've lost a number. In the last 10 years, when I look at Africa top 50, and we have been very much organized as Africa top 40, not many have come in. We've lost a number of those, and therefore you have a role to play. Bring your knowledge. Don't worry about the difficulties. In fact, if you don't face difficulties at all in your challenge, in your roles, I don't think you're doing anything. Use that as a measure. You call it frustrations, difficulties, problems. And I always when I'm speaking to high school students, because I do speak across all the young leaders, I always ask the young ones is, what wakes you up in the morning? Yeah, and I always get very perturbed when young people need an alarm. An alarm. I don't get it. Prof can need an alarm to wake him up. Fine. I normally wake up, so I do put an alarm, but I always find myself waking up before the alarm. Why? The fire in the belly, the oomph in the heart. If you have a purpose that drives you, you will not sleep. Not literally sleep, but you will sleep, but your mind is always thinking about what is the plan for tomorrow. That's entrepreneurs in your heart. So someone is feeling me, right? That is what you're going to be able to do. So if you find yourself waking up to an alarm, and this is you're in Maputo today, and you need an alarm to wake you up at 7 in the morning or 6 in the morning, then there we have a problem. We have a real problem. Yeah? And then for us, we continue to impact the young ones. So the program you're seeing there on your screens is largely empowering young women, because young women has remained generally very much uninvolved in the continent. And it's not an issue about getting less for men. It's just that we have challenges. I go to places, Prof, today, last December, I go to places in Mandera, and I am struggling with a parent marrying out a 12-year-old girl. This happens today. I mean, even this parent, you wonder, you can almost lock in this parent. What exactly are you doing marrying your 12-year-old daughter? In this generation. Yeah? So we do provide resources, we provide funding, and for us we do, one of the people I'm very excited about, and there are many of you in the room, is that our organization sponsors children who are less fortunate. We put in sponsorships to a lot of the younger people we have to get them a high school education. They go into universities, and they can discover themselves. And I was privileged when I was here yesterday to meet as a senior at HBS called Naftali. Where is Naftali? Naftali is here. You can stand and wave to the crowd. He is one of your own here. Naftali's story is a very personal one, and there are many of you. Just picking him up among the many. He grew up, if you follow the history of Kenyan elections, we had a difficulty in 2007. We had election violence, we had disagreements, and so they lost their home, as you know, parents, everything else. He was displaced. It took us longer to get a new transition government, but he remained focused. He was a young guy at that time, was in primary school. The foundation provides, so far, I think we've close to 2,000 scholarships so far. Take them to high school, they go into university. So working with us, here is a case of a young leader that you can build commitment, resilience, resolution, and that, I say, have a cause. Great leaders must have a cause, something that you are completely convicted about as you lead and drive yourself in the organization you're going forward. So the youth, in my view, you don't lack an opportunity. Whether you want to go into enterprise, whether you want to go into business, I like to encourage you as you progress yourself. And there are many things we have done. I keep you some 2 reasons in Kenya, so 2 products. So KCB M-Pesa is one product. Most of you can Google it. Angela is a driver for that. It's a mobile learning product which is available. You can see a lot of work being done. It's a mobile money transfer product. You can borrow it, you have pre-scored. We are looking for data scientists, engineers, designers. Create that product. And a lot of that's where we are here to speak to a number of you today to find What can you do in our own organizations? There are many of them in agriculture, a platform effect. And those platforms is what you need to drive the changes you like to see in our own countries. And whether it's in Kenya or you are somewhere else today, in Angola or maybe even in Egypt today, young people are more convicted about the change they are going to see. And therefore use the opportunity. For me, I will aspire that in the next 5 years, 10 years, when you have all grown, and give the time. I always say that young leaders should not be pushing for shortcuts. It's an important aspect to remember. And if you want to see that, there's a guy who is a marathon runner in Kenya. Most of you may have heard about him. He's called Eliud Kipchoge, right? He's trying to run a marathon in 2 hours. I don't know who remembers what was the last time he clocked. He was running in Japan. Is it in Japan? Who remembers, Angela? Who remembers the latest time he clocked? You will find the time that he's run. And if you look at the progress, 1:59:59 for a 42-kilometer race, you can imagine what it will be able to take. But I would say that in the next 5, 10, 20 years, when you have all gone to become, you are challenged by His Excellency Mahama that you can go to government, correct? You can be ministers, you can be business leaders, you can be entrepreneurs, you can be what you want to be able to do. You build a foundation. But for that to happen, you need a clear ambition, a clear vision, and you have a cause for yourself. And just run it. We are all here to give you the support that you need. But the journey doesn't always have to have a clear roadmap. There is usually more than one way to get a destination. Usually, more than one way to get to a destination. So it's upon you to decide what you want to do. And remember the words of Steve Jobs when he talked about when he lost his job in Apple. Remember what he said? It was the most difficult time. He grew up, he came back, got an opportunity, created an organization that has transformed life for a lot of people today. Now, I speak briefly again on the two aspects on business in Africa, doing some work in Africa. That has been spoken about more and more. And I don't want to repeat about the opportunities because both leaders yesterday spoke very strongly about what you see in all the countries, from minerals, from technology, from investments, what you see in the markets. That gives you a lot of opportunity, the skills, what you are working with. So that I will leave it so we can take a question on that. And then there's an issue about digital finance, the disruptions, and you'll have some conversation today in the breakaway sessions. A lot of that, I think, is your opportunity to come in and use investment in the digital revolution to invest where you see yourself. Those two, I think you got an intersection of technology and enterprise. Those two, if you find an opportunity for yourself, invest, whether it's whatever area. And I wanted to give you some few areas on government, logistics, manufacturing, healthcare, education, many areas you can invest yourself in to be able to progress and drive what you see as a vision. And we're here to give you the capital and the support as an organization, as KCB Group. And then I'd like to focus largely on the last item for me, which is the climate change and sustainability. Was spoken about yesterday, and I'm a strong believer that if we don't address the climate change or the challenges we face in our markets, a lot of our farmers, a lot of our lives are at risk on the continental levels. And I'll give you some kind of information today that climate change has caused farmers significant amount of threats because of changes in weather patterns. So farmers across the continent, today they can't harvest real crop to earn a living, to be sustainable. And we've seen that as some of the challenges that we face across the continent. So if there's something that you can do, we are investing strongly as an organization to ensure that happens and we can drive the changes we want to see in our markets where we are. So I will just summarize and say, Africa's future is bright, just as spoken about yesterday. Young people are in the center of making that transformation that we're going to be able to run. You come today, and everybody from South America, Australia, China is looking at these markets. You are in the diaspora, you have opportunities to invest in our markets where we are. So the promise is here today, and we're here to give you the support, the investment, the knowledge sharing, the job opportunities as KCB Group for you to be able to invest. And therefore, I look forward that the promise for the young people investing in our markets will come in very strongly. We'll see the leadership, the commitment, the disruptions, and the changes, and I'll be able to make sure that in the future, these are the leaders. And I have no doubt, Prof, when I listen today, visionaries for the continent are here today. I have no doubt that they will grow to become what we are looking for themselves in the organization where we are. So I will summarize it there and allow you to take some questions from me because I can answer some questions here. Thank you for having me as a team and the leadership. I appreciate your time. God bless you all. God bless Africa. And God bless the HBS team.
Thank you so much, sir. So now we're going to take 2 questions. The CEO has been very gracious to take time for questions. So we're just going to take 2 questions. HBS students, I'll cold call. 2 questions. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kashia, and there's one thing you mentioned earlier about the synergy between big banks and, say, small startups.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to know, with the fintech wave on the continent, how can small startups ensure that they can create sustainable platforms that, I mean, for some of them, they might want to merge into these big banks, but a big component of opportunities for employment come from small and medium-sized enterprises. So how can these SMEs ensure that the big banks are not going to swallow them up and take the work that they're doing for their own benefit? And how can they fuse that partnership to ensure equity amongst all stakeholders?
So we can take another question just to answer the 2.
Yeah, there was a second hand around here. Okay, Christian.
I recently visited Kenya and had an amazing time. And I think there's a lot of stigma around sort of people's overall perception of Africa in general. And you spoke about income inequality and how enterprises coming in have concentrated the wealth. Can you talk about, as we sort of venture into the business world of Africa, how we can keep that in mind and play a bigger part in prosperity for everyone and not just the small group of stakeholders?
Very, very good questions. I saw a hand raised here. Just one third one, if you allow. I'll answer the 3.
One last question.
First, thank you so much for that inspiring speech. My name is Adebisi Adeniji Adele, and I'm at the University of Pennsylvania, currently getting my master's in higher education. And so I remember one of the things that you touched on was just building Africa's capacity in education. So more specifically, my question is around, where do you see the capacity of tertiary education on the continent going to, and do you have a specific vision of what that could look like? Thank you.
So we can take those 3 questions. I'll be around if you need to be able to reach me. My team is here. We have 2 panelists, which you later on. So I would say 3 things. A lot of difficulties at policy level for your question. Today, in terms of the quality of education, countries have different opportunities in terms of interventions. So maybe I would say that our view has been to create, so Kenya is going through a lot of change for a new education system, all the way from primary school, middle school, high school to universities, starting, I think, this year. So some work to be done there, which we need to put in place. That's one area I would say that there's work of intervention. So countries have different models. We are intervening ourselves, so through our policy initiatives and what we do in terms of the scholarship program. But most countries will change, and it's different for English, kind of Anglophone countries, French, Francophone countries, different models, but it will change slowly. And more focus on STEM as well, which we see a lot of work that is going on. The question you raised about inequality, a lot of work is going on for the enterprises today, I would say, in my view, and it's a mix of both. In our continent, you need both the large organizations and the smaller ones to collaborate. You cannot exist alone in that network today between the large ones and the smaller ones. You have to put them together. That, for me, is what I see. And whether it's our size, Safaricom, which is presented today, other businesses, they will have to put them together in there. And collectively, you build inclusive growth. You deliver results, and we're very clear in terms of partners that we work with, how much we deliver for them in terms of investment, how much we deliver in terms of the returns, and how do we build them? Funding, we have programs where we fund small startups, we fund women enterprises, we provide long-term credit schemes for them. So we do financing, we do training. That model is what I think is working. I've seen it in Nigeria as well, South Africa, I've seen that in Zambia. So work going on. And as Prof said yesterday, the African transition journey is a continuum. It's not one size fits all. What you see in one country, another country is very different. But obviously, as long as you are making a move from one destination to another, what we should be looking for is progress, not perfection. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, before we go, we crave your indulgence. They say the secret of men are in their stories. If we were supposed to pay you, I'm sure we will not be able to afford you. So thank you so much for showing us the secrets to building successful businesses. A round of applause for him, please. Thank you so much, sir. We just have a small gift. We have the cameraman, yeah. Please move forward. We just have a small gift on behalf of the Africa Business Club. I would hand over to Kathu to take over.
Thank you.
First, thank you so much for accepting my invitation to come here. He's truly one of the sharpest minds in Kenya. Very humble leader, a servant leader, someone I look up to. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for making time for us. We have something small for you from Jindaya. It's a luxury African e-commerce company. So thank you, Jindaya, for also supporting the conference.
Thank you. Thank you.